My company is heavily focused in Iraq in the oil, gas and mining sector. And some 5 years ago, the Iraqi government, in conjunction with the British government, approached my company to look at exploiting the vast phosphate reserves in the western Anbar Desert of the nation. They contain some of the biggest deposits in the world, and it was with this in mind that they were seeking to divest themselves from the dependency on oil and gas. So that was the whole reason for my company's involvement in that region.
Okay, what is the opportunity? Yeah, what is the opportunity and what is the bring?
The opportunity, right. Well, as I said, the whole idea of getting involved in mining, per se, is to reduce the country's dependency on oil and gas. Now, we are, and it will be, the very first commercial mine in the history of Iraq, which will be run by a global group who have all of the expertise. We have a first-class team who have been doing this for many, many years, representing some of the biggest mining companies in the world. So we haven't gone at this half-cost. And the opportunity for anybody participating in this is that they get in on the ground floor. And that is, we have a resource which is proven, fully proven. It doesn't have to be drilled, so that means you don't have any exploration costs. We have a need to evaluate or define the resource. And so therefore, the value of the shares that are attached to our company are only nominal, very, very nominal.
Guys, can you mute because there's background noise? Where's that noise coming from? Anyone just mute their phone, that'll all go on.
Okay?
Yeah? Why don't you continue?
Okay, so I was just finishing up there. The opportunity is for anyone to participate at literally the ground level, because we have a resource which is fully proven. It doesn't have to be proven. It is fully drilled to C1 category standard. We are still going to improve that to JORC standard or NI 43101 standard, which will improve it. But it's out there. It exists. We have had this drilled very compliantly by the Iraqi authorities, the US Geological Survey, ATAL, for the last 45 years. So we've just stepped in and we've been awarded the license to build it out. So for anybody who wants to participate from now, it's the lowest possible level, entry level that anybody could actually have. That said, we're an open door company, and we're willing to listen to anybody who wishes to speak to us.
What is the actual stuff you're mining? Talk about that.
Well, phosphate is basically the building block of life. It is used primarily to produce DAP, diammonium phosphate, or monosodium phosphate, triphosphate, or super triphosphate, basically fertilizer products. And those will be used primarily in the agricultural industry to grow food. Now, obviously, with a burgeoning population, global population, food security is top of the agenda right now, particularly as far as the the United Nations and World Councils are concerned. Now, where we sit quite happily in the Middle East, on top of what is effectively 12% of the total global reserve in one mine, with more resource to exploit, we sit very happily with the possibility of producing a delivery brand, a port delivery brand and port delivery price. Yes, you can examine it for yourself. You just type in phosphate prices, and the first one will fly up under Google. You'll see Index Mundi, and the spot price currently today is $115 a ton. Our resource is proven at 3.5 billion tons. So that's an awful lot of noughts, effectively. So by all means, investigate that, and Simon will no doubt send you any information as you may request.
Okay, outside of the phosphate, what else? Talk about the limestone and the gas.
Well, we're actually blessed with the fact that where our anomaly sits, overburden, which is traditional in open cast mining, you have to basically strip it out before you can get to your resource and dump it. Our overburden happens to be limestone, and it happens to be 8 billion tons of that. That's not million, billion with a B. Now, that's an awful lot of cement when you think about it. Now, the Iraq diaspora, as you know, has been going through a lot of wars of late, certainly over the last 20 or 30 years, and Iraq has to be rebuilt. The government has given us a contract take all of the limestone that we can strip from the overburden before we even start mining the phosphate. And that will have a nominal value of some between 20 and 30, maybe even $40 a ton. So our waste and our overburden could generate up to $160 billion in terms of cash generative flow prior to actually build, operate, transfer process with the phosphate itself. There is one final good news story, and we actually sit next to the Akkas gas field, which is one of the largest non-associated gas fields in the Middle East. It was abandoned by the Korean Gas Corporation when ISIS crossed the border some 2 years ago. As you know now from the news, the entire region has been liberated. We have over 5.6 trillion cubic feet of proven reserve right next door to our phosphate field. So the story just gets better and better. Now, the government are our shareholders. The tribes, the local Sunni tribes, and the chiefs are our shareholders. We've ensured that we have the very, very best in terms of local participation and security. And indeed, we have the means and wherewithal from the Ministry of Industry and Minerals and the Geological Survey Department of Iraq itself all working with us. So everybody is together in trying to create what is now a good news story for Iraq. It's far, far too many years now, and you're fully aware of that amongst all of you, too many bad news stories, too much death, too much war, too much killing. Now it's time to rebuild the country, and we are in a prime position to be able to do that, at least start the ball rolling. And in this, we will be able to take Iraq, just with this one mine, from the bottom of the mining league globally right to the top in its respective category and class. So
what is it you want from everybody, like everyone on the call? What is it you're after?
We were awarded a 30-year mining rights and contract back in November last year, November the 27th, to exploit the reserves. Now, Iraq does not have mining policy. It does not have a mining investment law. And so it actually had to stitch together its process around our application for the mining rights and the license. So, in the first instance, we were granted the contract to exploit the resource. Now, the government wants us to apply for an investment license under its constitution and law. That license will allow us to, number one, repatriate capital 100% to a jurisdiction of our choice. It will allow us tax release on the importation of capital equipment as may be required from time to time, and so on. I mean, these are standard procedures. The point is, they have been done sort of back to front, and we have to bend to their will. Now, in the first case of applying for the contract, we didn't need a financial element. We did not need one. Now, in the application for the investment license, we do. The process for that is that each of our partners, our service providers, will provide the NIC, the National Investment Commission, with a letter stating that they are contracted to us to provide that service for which they specialise in. We have the technical capability, we have the corporate advisory capability. We now need a financial institution. So I need a letter of comfort from a financial institution stating that they are contracted to us to provide such financial provision or to assist us in obtaining financial provision for the build-out of the mine. Now, I don't want in that particular letter any numbers because the terms of any contractual arrangement between myself and my partners are private. It's not the knowledge, it's not for the benefit of the government. They don't want to see that. They just want to see a letter from a suitably bound financial institution that we have that support. That will get me across the line. Now, in order to allow that to be substantiated, I would suggest at the very least we had a memorandum of understanding between myself and whoever wishes to participate in this process. That means that if it's non-binding, you don't have to proceed after the 31st of July. Not that you have to do it before, because that gets me my license. But the most important thing is that it gives you freedom to actually participate without committing to anything.
Right, so what you're saying is...
my investment license.
So what you're saying is this letter,
yes,
you would use this to get your investment license.
Correct.
And the person writing this letter, if they decide they don't want, non-committal, they can pull out, right?
Yes, of course, because we have a non-binding memorandum sitting behind it.
Right, one question. Where do current sanctions stand at the moment?
What sanctions stand at the moment? I'm not with you.
Where do the current sanctions of Iraq stand at the moment? Like, for example, obviously, as it's Iraq, what is the government sanctions? Are there any?
No, there are no government sanctions. You're probably thinking about Iran.
Oh, right, okay. And any restrictions can Russians apply or Russian banks?
Yes, they can indeed apply. What we would arrange for is a letter to be made directly from the institution to the government on behalf of the holding company, which is the Al Anbar Oil and Geological, not us. So therefore, we can bypass that. But yes, the answer to your question is yes, we can do that.
In monetary terms, just give a value. If somebody provided the letter and the institution, what are you saying, financially they would be remunerated? What are you...
Well, I'm saying that at this stage, what we could do is we could offer a proportion of the nominal shares that are awarded to the holding company that holds the actual license. We'd be quite prepared to do that in consideration of favours given, and they can just sit on that, and when the NI 43101 is committed and given the valuation to the shares then up in value and then they're sold off, then they can actually redeem those shares at no cost to themselves. We would just give them to them as a favour, and thank you very much indeed, sit on that until we complete the JORC evaluation, and they can sell them accordingly. And
what's the time scale for that?
Right. First of all, 31st of July is our finite date for application to the NIC for the investment licence. I am going to estimate, and this is given that I'm dealing with Iraq, okay? I'm not dealing with the south of London here. I'm dealing with a country where some things can kick off at any time, given the fact that we've been there for 5 years and have seen it all, been there and done it all. I would like to think that we could get in on the ground and have a JORC evaluation to A1 category standard by, I would estimate, Christmas. And that's because please let me be very clear with this. You are fully aware in the news of late that Fallujah has just been retaken. That was the last tape in the last city in Anbar to be taken, so Anbar is now fully liberated. But you will appreciate that there have been an awful lot of nasty surprises left by ISIS on the ground. So in order for us to access the ground, the security forces have to give us permission to go in, and they're now clearing that ground. So the reason I'm saying before Christmas, I don't know how long it's going to take for them to clear that area, bearing in mind Anbar province is 1/3 the size of the whole of Iraq. Okay? So it's not a little piece of ground in the back of somebody's house. It's a massive, massive land area. So given the data we already have, the drill-out data that's been committed over the last 40 years, we can probably do a JORC evaluation without having to put boots on the ground. But I will bend to better judgment and say, watch this space.
So if somebody come along with the letter, did it all, monetary, what are you talking, hundreds of millions in remuneration or what?
Well, no, I'm talking about shares which are nominal in value, which cover 100% holding in a resource which is 3.5 billion tonnes at $115 a tonne. So you can play around with those numbers all day long. All I'm simply saying is that in order to add value or put value upon those shares, what I need to do is to get on ground and also take it to JORC or NI 43101 status, which will then allow me to value those shares and sell them accordingly, or people can sell them if they want or sit on them. It's entirely up to them. Because our corporate advisors in Grant Thornton are advising on the structure of the group and the company, and bearing in mind also that this is in a country where people aren't exactly beating a path to get to invest into right now. This is, I'm not even suggesting for a moment that Brexit's got anything to do with this. No, forget all about that. I'm talking about Iraq itself. The oil companies are there? Yes, they are, because Iraq is 99.9% oil. They don't do anything else. This is a first. However, we have the very best in the world in terms of marketing, the very best in the world in terms of marketing phosphates and petrochemicals. Worley Partners, number 1 in their field. WSP Partners Brinkhoff, number 1 in their field. Grant Thornton, number 4 in their field. We're lucky we do not have anybody outside the top 5 in their respective disciplines. So I would like to think that anybody who's listening in on this call can add to the strength of that. And I think that the Iraqi government would appreciate that too, because it will be able to show the world that it's open for business. All right?
Okay. Right, okay.